Shot glass of recovery, working the 12 steps, listen to fellows speak. You can listen in wherever you may be. It's a shot glass of recovery.
Hello and welcome to A Shot Glass of Recovery. I'm your host, Lisa, and it's Lisa and Friends as we continue on with our literature study today. Grab your 12 steps and 12 traditions, and you can crack it open to page 90. We're in step 10 in the 12 and 12. And so we're going to begin at a few people have been. And just like before, it's been working really well. Rather than have me read for 30 or 40 minutes, you guys pop your hands up and come in, even if it's 2 lines after I've read something or 2 paragraphs. Don't be shy. That really helps to add to the meeting, add to the flavor of the meeting, these many voices. And I see we have, oh no, we do have a guy. Thank you, Mike, for showing up. I was going to say, it looks like it's a ladies' meeting today. Unless Mike is wearing a dress and lipstick, we have some variety now. All right, so this is the 3rd paragraph down, halfway down the page. We're going to start with, few people have been more victimized by resentments than have we alcoholics. So they're not saying that we corner the market on resentments. Of course, everybody has resentments, but we can be the ones who are most victimized by them. And I believe because we spend a lot of time in fiction, fantasy, and in our minds going over things. I would go over things like play that tape, play that reel over and over again, the highlight reel of my life or the day that I was in, playing over something that had happened to me. And the more I revisited it, the worse it got. And the bigger a victim I was. And the more I retold the story, the worse the situation always got. And for me, that really sums up the word victimized by my resentments. It mattered little whether our resentments were justified or not. So that's another reminder of, is it fancied or is it real? Sometimes I can run off on a little resentment train with, I think they meant this, or, there was a tone in their voice. Anyone else get upset by the perceived tone in a text message? Like, I can't see their face, I can't hear their voice, but I'm going to project onto them what I think they might mean. And off I go. I'm off on the resentment train. Ticket for 1, please. Bound to hell. All right. A burst of temper could spoil a day, and a well-nursed grudge could make us miserably ineffective. Nor were we ever skillful in separating justified from unjustified anger. As we saw it, our wrath was always justified, right? That's my ego. I'm always right, and everyone else is always wrong. Anger, that occasional luxury of more balanced people, could keep us on an emotional jag indefinitely. An emotional jag, think of that as not being in emotional sobriety, not having rational thought, not having the ability to pause, to pray before reacting. I look at emotional sobriety, the 2 difference between the R words. When I'm not emotionally sober, I react. I go right into being defensive or being judgmental or being argumentative or being defiant. But when I'm more on the beam and I'm in balance with my emotional sobriety, which is not every day, then I respond. And a response means that I have calculated, I have weighed things, I have looked at the other person's position, I have taken a pause, I've sought counsel through my sponsor. And that's a response because it slows things down. I'm kind of going in slow motion. Anger, I read that. These emotional dry benders. I don't know about you guys, but that is a great phrase for me because if I have had an emotionally responsive or reactive day and I've been triggered or I've been going off, I'm angry, I'm grouchy, I'm sitting in self-pity, the next day, I feel like I was on a bender the day before. I usually have a headache, I didn't sleep well, and I can feel the effects like I used to feel after an alcohol bender. So these emotional dry benders often led straight to the bottle. And Carla's put her hand up. Come on in, Carla.
Hey guys, my name is Carla and I'm an alcoholic. You know, it's funny because, and I have to just jump in because otherwise I'll forget what I resonated with. I heard somebody say that this morning and I like that. Last time we were here, we learned that even being annoyed is part of anger. And I had never really realized that before. And I can totally relate to the resentment part of it that I'll play that crap over and over and over again in my head. And it just continues to spiral from there. And thank God for progress because I notice being annoyed now and the reaction is like instantaneous for me. I don't know, there's no pause in there, there's no pray, I mean, it just like happens and I'm only catching it after I'm annoyed. Now, I am being able to deal with it quickly, in my opinion. I think it's quickly, but it's still a knee-jerk reaction for me, which I find is interesting. But, with the tools and everything that I'm learning, it's not that continual spiral like it used to be, and I'm so grateful for that. So, and when I do spiral, I have, somebody to call. So there's that too. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. And progress, not perfection. Focus on the fact that you're catching it. Even though you react and it happens, but you're catching it. That's huge. And I started to notice the shift at year 5. So hang on. Things happen slowly, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. I started to feel a little bit more emotionally sober at year 5, and even more so around year 10. Practice. Hi, Mike. Come on in.
Everybody, my name is Mike, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. Thank you, Lisa. I relate to this. I'm feeling anger right now. I'm in a situation, family related, that I am angry with God. I am I feel in a sense kind of betrayed because, I also feel justified in my anger, but I know it's completely and utterly delusional. I know the truth about it, but I can't help but feel it. And it kind of bogs me down a little bit, and then I don't wanna do any of the work. I don't wanna sit and pray. I don't wanna be quiet in my soul. I don't wanna feel anything because it's hard to feel this right now. Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm very scared. That fear leads me to just anger right away, and I don't wanna be angry. I don't wanna stay angry. So I feel that emotional, like, relapse, that what we were just talking, I feel it. I feel that emotional hangover. Oh my god, do I feel it. And it hurts, man. I don't wanna be like this, but I also don't wanna change right now because I know there's more to come. We're not done yet. This is like this is just the tip of the iceberg. So much more is coming. I'm trying to be present in the moment, and it's just difficult. I'm, uh I'm grateful that I'm still here. I'm grateful for the outcomes of everything that has happened with my family because it's all good stuff. But just going through it is painful, and I'm filled with fear, and it's difficult. That's where I'm at. I think I need to write this out more than just a 10th step or an 11th. I think I really need to write this one out because I've been feeling this way. It's now we're getting on 2 months now this week coming up. This is 2 months. And I had acceptance right up until this point. This was the needle and not haystack that little bit of straw that pushed me over. But I will keep coming back and I will keep listening and I'll keep growing and I'll keep sharing because that's what I have to do today because I know I will go right back to drinking immediately or other substances because that's what I do. That's my windfall. That's where I go to. I know how painful the next step past this is gonna be. I love you guys. Thank you, Lisa.
Gosh, Mike, we love you too, and Trisha and Elliot, and we're all here with you and we're all praying for you. And it's unimaginable what we go through sometimes. And I know Trisha joked in a meeting about, doesn't God have any other toys to play with right now? But I think you're doing exactly what you need to do. Just my opinion. But of course you're angry. Of course you're frustrated. Of course you're tired. But you're doing the things that you need to do. We no longer stuff our anger. We also don't turn it towards other people. We don't turn it into an excuse to drink. And I always say, like, God can handle our anger because God is God. So I can be mad at God and know that God's not going to abandon me because I'm human. So keep admitting it. Keep saying it out loud. Keep telling us. And yeah, I think you got a good plan there about writing it out. And today you get to be present. And it's hard to be present in a situation like that. But you are there for your kid and you're there for your wife. And that's emotional sobriety. Jen, come on in.
Hi, everyone. Jen, alcoholic. I love this paragraph. When I first got into AA and started working the steps, this is something that I highlighted and wrote so many notes all over, because when it says few people have been more victimized by resentments than have we alcoholics, describes my drinking journey to a T. My escalation started when my dad passed away. And, if you lose a father, of course my drinking's gonna escalate. Whose wouldn't? It's not fair that I lost my dad at 68, all of those kinds of things. If you stayed in a marriage that was as emotionally abusive and as controlling as mine, then of course you would drink to tolerate your husband at night so that you could get through another day to stay together for your kid. And then, all of a sudden I'm separated and in a divorce, and I'm getting calls and texts just berating me nonstop all day, even before my drinking escalated. And it just became too much. And all of those resentments built up. And I felt completely justified to fall apart, even in front of my son who was living with me at the time, because nobody knew how hard it was to deal with my ex. And it wasn't until I was able to read this and come into the rooms of AA and realize that, when people were telling me that, of course she's drinking right now, you got to understand what she's going through, that they also don't have a program. They don't understand that there's actually things you can do to work on to remove those resentments and to, work on them on a daily basis so they don't bury up again. And I love coming back to this because it just remembers of what got me in the rooms and the things that come out of my character defects that I need to continually to be aware of so that I don't get back to that victimized point of feeling like it's justified. So thanks for this morning.
Wow. See what I mean? Good stuff when people share. And I loved we're going through the book together. So when I went through the book with my sponsor, this is exactly what we did. We would read a little bit and then I would say, "Oh, that reminds me of," or "I felt like that too." And this is the whole identification process that we need to go through. And then my sponsor would say, "Oh yeah, I can relate." And suddenly I didn't feel alone anymore. It's amazing. It is amazing. So let's continue on and feel free to interrupt. Bottom of page 90. Other kinds of disturbances: jealousy, envy, self pity, or hurt pride did the same thing. A spot check inventory, so we're talking about step 10, taken in the midst of such disturbances can be of very great help in quieting stormy emotions. I have a place then. I can put that self pity, hurt pride, anger, jealousy, envy. Pen to paper. That's where I get to put it. I used to put it on other people. I used to lash out or turn it inward and self-harm, right? Feel the shame and sit in self-pity, which is very destructive for an alcoholic. But today, I can put it someplace. I can put pen to paper. I can put it down in black and white. It helps me understand it a little bit better. It's a release. And then I can call another alcoholic, usually my sponsor. But if my sponsor's not available, I've done step 10s with friends. I've done them with sponsees. We're the same. We're all alcoholics. We all struggle with the same things. Some of us have just been doing it a little bit longer than others. That's it. So today's spot check finds its chief application. I don't know if you can hear that. That's my dog craving attention. She had surgery. She's a little needy. Today's spot check finds its chief application to situations which arise in each day's march. So this is a tool I can use every single day. One of the questions I can ask a sponsee is, what step are you working right now? What step are you in? You know, it could be step one, realizing, yeah, I'm powerless over this situation, or my life is definitely unmanageable. I'm trying to run things I absolutely have no business running. I have no control over these things. Or maybe it's in step three. I've been turning it over. I've been saying that prayer many times a day to my higher power. Or this, step 10. I was restless, irritable, and discontent. So I took action. This is the action that I'm taking. And sometimes the answers don't come right away. That's another thing I had to learn. That teaches me patience and acceptance of things as they are. There have been many things that have happened in my life that are unexplainable. And that has taught me acceptance. And it's also taught me patience. Because there have been some times when, upon looking back, maybe weeks, months, years later, I can say, oh, I get it now, God. That's why that happened. I needed to slow down, or I needed to go in a different direction. Getting that thing would have been harmful to me, although I didn't see it at the time. I saw it as a solution. I saw it as a way out. So I love looking in the rearview mirror and sometimes getting the answer that I need, because I'm in a different spot today than I was a year ago, 10 years ago. The consideration of long-standing difficulties, top of page 91, had better be postponed, when possible, to times deliberately set aside for that purpose. The quick inventory is aimed at our daily ups and downs, especially those where people or new events throw us off balance and tempt us to make mistakes, usually old mistakes, old patterns. That's why these things need to be postponed and slowed down. We need to pause. In all these situations, we need self-restraint. I said to someone the other day, this program is about discipline. This is someone new, 2 weeks sobriety. Discipline means that I do things that I don't always want to do. Not bad things, not harmful things, but things like, I don't feel like going to a meeting today, but I'm grouchy. I probably need to go to a meeting. Probably need to hear a message. Probably need to get out of self. Maybe I'm going to hear from somebody else who's feeling exactly like I am. Or maybe I'm going to hear from somebody who was feeling exactly like how I am, but they're not anymore. And they're going to tell me what they did to get out of it. And I can say that only once in my time in AA did I go to a meeting and not feel better at the end of it. I was in something maybe very dark. But every other time, I've left feeling better than I did when I walked in. In all these situations, we need self-restraint, honest analysis of what is involved, a willingness to admit when the fault is ours, and an equal willingness to forgive when the fault is elsewhere. If you have a highlighter, if you have an actual physical book in front of you, I would say that's another great place to highlight what is required in this step 10. What does the step 10 help us with? Self-restraint, honesty, and willingness. And then right here, it tells me what my choices are. If I'm restless, irritable, and discontent, if I feel that someone has wronged me, or I'm resentful in some way, here are my choices. It is outlined, and it might be hidden, so I'm going to point it out. I get to forgive when the fault is elsewhere, or when the fault is mine, I get to make an amends. I get to set it right. I get to clean my side of the street. And if I'm doing a step 10, I get to do it in the same day that it happened. So if I ever have to do a fourth step again, it's not huge. It's not this huge. Remember your first fourth step? And you were like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm writing so much. I'm like 10 pages in. And it's a lifetime's work. But by the time you do another one and maybe another one, it's smaller. Maybe it's 5 things. Maybe it's 3 things. But if you're doing this step 10 every day, you will find that those big ones are not as necessary. We need not be discouraged when we fall into the error of our old ways, for these disciplines are not easy. And that's a great reminder. These disciplines are not easy. Don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. We tend to do that. It can be an early recovery. It can be maybe a year or two in, which for me was still early recovery, where I'm like, why am I not? Oh, ever been in a meeting or been hanging around with people and you've got a year, maybe 2 years sobriety, and some punk comes in with 3 months and they're walking on fucking sunshine? And you're like, what? What are they doing that I'm not doing? Or their life is just peaches and sunshine and rainbows, and I'm mired down in the shit of life. And I'm like, really, God? Okay, it happens. It happens to all of us. Do not be discouraged. Do not give up on yourself, and don't beat yourself up. We need not be discouraged when we fall into the error of our old ways, for these disciplines are not easy. Disciplines. A discipline could be a way of study, a practice, a way of living. It takes time. I think they say it takes 40 days to start to develop a new habit. And if we stop doing the things that helped us develop that habit, then we're going to fall off the wagon again. We're going to go backwards. We're going to fall into old habits, which is why discipline is a great word. It means to continue the practice. We shall look for progress, not perfection. Our first objective will be the development of self-restraint. This carries a top priority rating. When we speak or act hastily or rashly, so you can underline that, our first objective will be development of self-restraint. The ability to be fair-minded and tolerant evaporates on the spot, right? I love that my wife and I, when we did our sex inventory, we shared it with each other. What does our ideal relationship list look like? And my sponsor taught me this is not a shopping list of what you want your future partner to look like. This is a, what do I want to look like? What do I want to be? That's different from what I used to be like. My sex inventory outlines very clearly what my character defects were. I was selfish, self-centered, manipulative, self-seeking, dishonest, untrustworthy. I don't want to be those things now. Now that I know what I was, I had huge blinders on. I thought I was the victim until I put things down on paper. So I don't want to be like that anymore. So I need to think about what I want to be, and that's where that ideal inventory list, that relationship list comes into play. And we looked at what we brought to the relationship. And then we also had to be honest. You know, we both bring some baggage to a relationship. But if we're willing to work on that, if we're willing to correct the behaviors of the past, and also if we have boundaries for ourselves, that's a good way to start a relationship too. And in our relationship, one of the things we talked about, this speak or act hastily or rashly, we've learned not to call each other names. Because once a word is spoken, it cannot be unspoken. Same with an act. Thankfully, I was not a violent person to my partner, but, you know, people have been. If you slap someone or punch them or push them, that is an act that cannot be taken back. And it can also lead to a criminal charge. So don't do that. Don't do it. Oh, I'm going to mute you again, Jen. You keep hitting your button there. And I just realized I've not been sharing my screen. So thank you for following along in your book. All right. When we speak or act hastily or rashly, the ability to be fair-minded and tolerant evaporates on the spot because our emotions are running the show in that moment. Not sanity, not God, me. My emotions are running the show. One unkind tirade or one willful snap judgment can ruin our relation with another person for a whole day, or maybe a whole year, or I would add, a lifetime. Maybe it signals the end of a relationship for the other person. Maybe they're tired of this behavior, and so they're just done. We just never know what that last straw will be. Nothing pays off like restraint of tongue and pen. Highlight, underline. Nothing pays off like restraint of tongue and pen. And Carla, come on in.
Carla's still alcoholic. You know what? Thank God I don't say the things that come into my head. I mean, really, because it's not that I didn't mean it. It's not, I mean, because I did, but it was so destructive, and it would just cut people like a knife. And that is not something that I'm proud of. So thank God today that I don't say the things that sometimes creep in there. And it was my sponsor that said something to the effect of, is it kind? Is it considerate? And is it necessary? Or something like that. And yeah, the things that cut like that, it's none of those things. And that's not who I want to be anymore. So thank God. I mean, literally, because it was atrocious. And it's not now. That's all.
Thank you. Hey, Karen, go ahead.
I don't know whether we're doing this or not, so I'll do it. Hi, I'm Karen. I'm an alcoholic, and my mind was going over, do we do that? Don't we in this meeting? And it's like, just fucking do it. Anyway, um, the restraint to tongue and pen, it was really easy when I first did it because all of my reactions were anger. If you stepped on my toes, I was angry. If you dropped the pen in front of me, I was freaking angry. And so it was really easy for me to take a breath and not send out that, restraint. But as years go on, what I find, and even today, I have to be very careful that there's a part of me that says I'm sane, I'm rational nowadays. I'm a really great communicator. I have that belief. It's like I can manage things, which is great till I get in fear. And I've been challenged a lot in the last few months. A lot of fears coming up in all sorts of different places, and that's when I've found, restraint of pen and tongue is probably when I need to be using it a lot more, and I haven't been. And it's harder for me when I'm in fear because it's kind of like, oh, you're going to abandon me, or you're leaving, or whatever, you're rejecting me, whatever it is. It's like, and I realized by doing some of the 10th step that I was reacting a lot more in fear, and that I needed to step back and take those go back to the basics, which is restraint of pen and tongue, whatever else, text, everything that's included, and start implementing that in my life again today. It saved a lot of stuff. And I just want to talk 1 second about the 10th step inventory too. It's really easy for me to see where I've been an ass that day. I've said something, I've done something. What's harder and what's been really good about the 10th step is when I get at the end of the day and all of a sudden I'm reflecting, I'm thinking, hold on, hang on, that person kind of had a bit of a reaction that I didn't notice at the time, but on reflection I can see. There's a part in the 12 and 12 that talks about how we tread through our life unknowingly in our selfishness and self-centeredness, treading upon everybody's toes. And that's what the step 10 has allowed for me is to be able to look and see when I never noticed, but I was just being me. I remember a friend of mine once said, I was having fun teasing some people, and she was like, yeah, well, that's at my expense. And it's like, fuck yeah, it was, but I was having a great time. And so it's just taking those moments to realize that just me sometimes living my life, I can like shoulder you and knock you over. And that 10th step allows me to stop and take the breath and kind of go, did something happen here? And then to go back to the person. And that's made a world of difference.
I'm just going to share a quick little personal story. Karen and I work with a lot of men, and men like to tease the shit out of each other, and they're brutal. And Karen has picked up that trait and that quality. And sometimes my feelings get hurt, and my wife, because I tell my wife everything, she'll go, oh, she doesn't know you have lady feelings. I look butchy, but I have lady feelings. Okay, Heather, come on in.
That's hilarious. Hi, I'm Heather, an alcoholic. Yeah, when you were talking about just restraint, I have a crazy person that lives in my head, especially if I'm tired. And I found, even the last couple of days, the reactions that my brain tells me to do and say that I am noticing and not doing. I did exactly what you're talking about. I made a joke at someone's expense in front of everybody yesterday morning at a meeting. And I immediately felt like, oh God, that came out wrong. I probably hurt that person's feelings. And so the meeting started, and then I kind of went off and was like, do I owe them an apology? Am I overreacting? What am I supposed to do? So I did send them a note after like 10 minutes of circling And I was like, "I'm really sorry. I said blah, 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 and I didn't mean it. It came out wrong." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't even hear that." I'm like, "Of course." You didn't even freaking hear it. And even today, I was in the meeting and someone was messaging with me just figuring out some logistics, and I said something I couldn't find what they were looking for, and I was like, "I'm so sorry," and I wanted to keep messaging and saying, "I'm so sorry I made this so complicated, blah, blah, blah," and I was like, "Whoa, dial it back. Like, you don't need to spend 5 minutes apologizing for something." So, yeah, just all of that is to say that I'm learning restraint. It's easier when it's the big things, when it's like, "Oh, don't tell that person off." Like, just keep that deal with that on your own, but it's the smaller things that can be sneaky and kind of make you wanna act out. Thanks.
It's like that tricky side of ego. A lot of people can't identify ego or they don't think that they have ego. I didn't think that I had ego. I thought I was a humble person. And that's not all that ego is either. So ego can be that psychopath that lives in your head that tells you you're dumb, you're stupid, you're unworthy, you're unlovable, people are going to leave you, and it just goes off like the crazy train, right? That ticket for one, sign me up on the crazy train. And it also is the part of your brain that the ego part that fixates on self. And that can be negative or it can be positive. We can either think we're better than other people, we know more, and we're right, or we can focus on that we think we're less than, or we're fucking up all the time. And how can we fix that fuck up? And one way to catch that part of ego is catching the focus. So ask yourself, how much time am I spending on this? Am I spinning? Is this a sane reaction to spend this much, like you said, to spend like 5 minutes thinking about, oh, I should keep apologizing? And like, is once not enough? Does doing it multiple times make it more impactful? I don't think so. But yeah, anyway, anyone else? Okay. Go back to the reading. Good shares today, guys. So yeah, we were just talking about restraint of pen and tongue. Very helpful. I got reminded of that a lot by my sponsor. Stop texting people. Stop sending email responses. Like, just wait. Let's check your thinking. We must avoid quick-tempered criticism and furious, power-driven argument. The need to be right. And sometimes it's not the need to be right. It's the need to be heard. I don't feel like you're hearing me. I don't feel like you're listening to me. And that can come from, what's the underlying root of that? Maybe it's a feeling of powerlessness. Maybe it's a feeling of not being worthy, not mattering, feeling small. Why do I feel I need to be heard? Is it because I want the other person to change their mind? Is it because I want them to see my part, see my side, see my way of thinking? So there's lots of great questions. That's one thing that this program has taught me, is to check my motives and ask questions. Like, what's the root? What is my motivation behind this need right now? What will I gain if I act quickly, as opposed to if I pause and wait and discern? Discern, that's such a wonderful word. These are emotional booby traps, baited with pride and vengefulness. Our first job is to sidestep the traps, right? Maybe if we start to visualize giant steel bear traps. These are our emotions. These are our quick responses. They are bear traps. Would I willingly put my foot in a bear trap? No. So maybe if we start to visualize this pride, this ego, this quick response as a bear trap, it might help us sidestep it a little better. When we are tempted by the bait, we should train ourselves to step back and think, right? Avoid the bear trap. For we can neither think nor act to good purpose until the habit of self-restraint has become automatic. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And sometimes we can be riding that emotional beam for months and years, and then boom, something on a Tuesday comes out of nowhere and we react. Doesn't mean that we're all of a sudden failing the program or failing at life, or we've forgotten the design for living. We had a bad moment. Can you forgive yourself? Can you move on? Can you do better? I think so. Disagreeable or unexpected problems are not the only ones that call for self-control. We must be quite as careful when we begin to achieve some measure of importance and material success. For no people have ever loved personal triumphs more than we have loved them. We drank of success as of a wine which could never fail to make us feel elated. It is a well-known fact in Alcoholics Anonymous that, let's say 100 people reach it to year 1. Year 5, you've dropped to 50. Year 10, you've dropped to 20, 10. So it's important to note that. They noticed that when we started to give cakes and medallions, that number increased, right? People wanted and lived for. Think about every month when you're at an in-person meeting, you go up and you get a chip, a 1-month chip, and the room is like, oh yeah, woo, look at you. You know what happens at 1 year and 1 month? Nada, nothing. No chip, no celebration, no pat on the back, no congratulations, job well done. And for an alcoholic, that's like, what happened, right? That is sometimes a hard transition. So I can really relate to this. We loved our triumphs. When temporary good fortune came our way, we indulged ourselves in fantasies of still greater victories over people and circumstances. Thus, blinded by prideful self-confidence, we were apt to play the big shot. Decades ago, I was in radio and I was in small town radio, or I was on the East Coast, small town radio, and I was a big success. Face on billboards, people recognized me everywhere I went, got to go to concerts for free, got to do a lot of things for free, drink for free, eat for free. I barely paid for anything. I felt that I was living the life. I had arrived. And then there was a change in circumstances and we moved and we came to Toronto. I went from big fish, little pond to little fish, big pond. And suddenly I couldn't get really great jobs. I was in and out of work. I was doing overnight show. I had gone from the morning show to the overnight show. Talk about a plummet. Talk about a crushing blow to my ego. And my ego couldn't handle that. And eventually I would drink. It wasn't just over that reason. It was over a loss of a relationship. I didn't get what I wanted. My victories weren't forthcoming. I had built it up in my mind that I was on a trajectory. I was on a path of success and I was going to climb and it was going to be even greater. It was just going to be fantastic. I was going to be a #1 rated morning show host in Toronto, in the big city. And that didn't happen. And I started to falter. Thus, blinded by prideful self-confidence, we were apt to play the big shot. Of course, people turned away from us, bored or hurt. Now that we're in AA and sober and winning back the esteem of our friends and business associates, we find that we still need to exercise special vigilance as an insurance against big shot-ism. I love it when we make up words. I like that I'm not the only person that makes up words. Big shot-ism. I don't think that's in the dictionary, but I like it. We can often check ourselves by remembering that we are today sober only by the grace of God, and that any success we may be having is far more His success than ours. That is a humbling way to look at things. That puts me in right size. That crushes my ego, and that makes me a person who is one of, an equal to my fellows, no better, no less than. It diminishes the big shotism when I give the success its rightful due to my higher power, that I would have nothing if it wasn't for my reliance on a power greater than myself. Because when I was running the show, things were not going well. No hands? Finally, we begin to see that all people, including ourselves, are to some extent emotionally ill. I like how they sneak that in there, including ourselves, because it's easy for me to see that you're emotionally ill, but I also have to remember that I am emotionally unwell, as well as frequently wrong. Oh, I don't like that. I remember when I learned how to stop an argument in its tracks by saying, perhaps you're right. And then my sponsor, the next level, is saying, perhaps I'm wrong. Then I've graduated. to more humility. Perhaps I'm wrong. Because, perhaps I'm right. I'm getting in that little last kind of like, yeah, maybe you're right. I know you're not. I'm right, but I'll give you that. I'll give you that just to end the argument. So perhaps I'm wrong is like I've graduated to the next level. And then we approach true tolerance and see what real love for our fellows actually means. It will become more and more evident as we go forward that it is pointless to become angry or to get hurt by people who, like us, are suffering from the pains of growing up. What an act of humility that is. If someone triggers me or hurts my feelings or they behave badly, if I can accept where they're at instead of judging them. I've been mad at people with decades of sobriety because I think, well, they should know better. They should do better. But I've also met lots of people who didn't do any work. They came to meetings and they sat around and they listened and they shared in rooms. And then I discover, wow, they didn't even go through the book. They didn't do the steps. They talked about them, but they didn't live them. And don't sit in judgment. I don't sit in judgment of them. But it's when I can look at that other person and go, you know what? I don't know what they're going through right now. And would I want to be judged the way I'm judging them right now? No, I would not. I hate it. I hate it when people think that of me or say that to me. So I try to extend other people the same courtesy today. And we are all growing up, and hopefully we continue to grow. Doesn't matter if you have 10 or 40 years in this program. We still get to grow. Some of the healthiest people I know are the people who continue to do the work, go to meetings, sponsor other people, work with sponsees, and they continue to grow. They could rest on their laurels, right? You've heard it. Why do you still go to those meetings? You don't want to drink anymore. Why do you still go? I go because I want to continue to grow. I grow because I know today, finally, I don't know everything. There's always something new to learn. And a hand. Come on in.
There we go. Yeah. Are we doing that? Carla alcoholic. I don't know.
Sure.
I forgot what I was going to say.
And thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So resting on our laurels. Been there, done that, drank. So yeah, there's that. But you know what I like about 10, 11, and 12, I've heard people, and it's funny because I was talking with someone the other day about that. And I hear people sometimes will say, these are maintenance steps. But I go to this big book study and he says these are continuance steps, especially 10. And I love that because it's like, do I want to maintain what I have or do I want to keep growing? And, I want to keep growing. I don't want to, stay in the same place. That's the same thing as resting on laurels. And I know what that gets me, so that's my experience with that part of it. But yeah. Anyway, you just reminded me of that, so I thought I'd just jump in and say I was alcoholic and forget everything else.
Thanks. Jump in, the water's fine. Oh, Karen, come on in.
Just the resting on the laurels, it's after 10 years sober, I was one of those people that kind of drifted away. And excuse me, you do stop doing the work and stop working the steps. I've always said that I started working them backwards, and most people will work them backwards to get to that. By the time they drank, stop working with others, stop meditating, stop looking at myself in inventory, and just work backwards. So I stayed dry. And I said, stayed dry, but I was freaking miserable, and coming back to AA, it's the two things is the connection with a higher power, but the other was working the steps on a continuous basis. And I love that it's not that it's a continuous steps, I think is what you said. I love that idea. And, that's what brings me contented sobriety. This is by being here, coming to the meetings, working the steps and not resting on my laurels. When I get restless, irritable, and discontent, which as an alcoholic, I do whether I'm sober or I'm drinking, I find that that's a state of naturalness, as natural to me as selfishness and self-centeredness, and I have to fight against it. the fight against it for me is working the steps and doing that growth, and being prepared to. So anyway, that
Thank you, Karen. And Laura, come on in.
Hello, Laura, alcoholic. Thank you for this meeting. I love these meetings. I look forward to them every single month. With my step 10, when I start finding myself being resentful or I don't understand something, I go back to my step 3. It reminds me of my step 3 where I gave my will and my life over to the care of God. And within that, it reminds me of the actor scenario. When I was the director of my life, everything was destroyed, and now I gave that role to God, to my higher power. And so that means that people, situations, things happen, situations happen, and they're not easy. Some of them are very, very difficult, and you wonder why. Like, why? What's going on? What's behind this? Why is my loved one sick? Why is my child sick, for example? I don't understand, but that is not meant for me to understand. Remember, I remind myself that I gave my will and my life over to the care of God, and He's my director. So it humbles me to where I just sit back and I just watch. I do the very best I can every single day to get through every day, not just in survival mode, but to live every day and to be grateful for every day and to praise my higher power every day because He's got this. I don't, and He knows what He's doing, and I don't. So I love the 10 step because it does help me realize. Like, for example, I had a resentment yesterday, but I didn't realize I had it up until this morning. I'm like, whoa, I can't judge that woman because I did the same thing when I was in my alcoholism. She doesn't see it for herself. But yeah, so thank you so much for this meeting. I'm sorry my little one's crying.
No worries. Thanks for coming in. All right, we're almost at time. One of the things I just recently shared was my nightly inventory. I found a cool little checklist, a little sheet that people can print off and fill out. And, for years I've done it right from the book because it asks those questions. It tells me, this is what I do in the morning, this is what I do at night. And it asks the questions. Where was I resentful? Where was I selfish? Where was I dishonest? Where was I afraid? And then this little checklist does that. So I don't know. I shared it with my sponsees. If you guys want it, I can share it in the chat or I can send it to you in text. Looks like that. On the left-hand side, it has those questions and room for you to write. I love that it doesn't give you a lot of room, so we don't get into the story. We just tell the facts. Was I thinking of myself or what I could do for others? Was I kind and loving toward all? What could I have done better? Did I cause any harms? To whom might I owe an apology? And then it asks, what am I grateful for today? And then what did I accept and surrender? So usually if I have a resentment or I'm angry about something, I'm holding on to something. And for me, it usually comes down to control. I want things to go the way I want them to go, and they're not. So that's what I'm resentful for. And then on the right-hand side, it has an action list. So like your pillars. Did you pray? Did you meditate? Did you read something from the big book? Any recovery literature, like the daily reflection? As Bill sees it, those things count. A paragraph from the big book. Did I attend a meeting? Did I call my sponsor? Did I reach out to another alcoholic? And then I like this part because it has self-will on one side and then a checklist for spirit or God's will on the other side. And it gives examples. On the left side, anger. Spirit side, calm. Left side, dishonest. Spirit side, honest. Left side, doubt. Spirit side, faith. And it continues on down the way. I call that the balance beam checklist. If I'm not feeling peaceful, then I have some work to do. And I used to just think it was because other people were behaving badly. And they can still behave badly. Sometimes people are just assholes. But I can't make them un-asshole. I can't make them not be an asshole anymore. But I can make sure that I'm not, or I can try. So that helps. And then, this was a nice little 10-step prayer. I had not heard this one before. I usually make up my own. This one, please forgive me for my failings today. I know that because of my failings, I was not able to be as effective as I could have been for you, reminding me that my purpose here is to be of maximum service. Please forgive me and help me live your will better today. I ask you now, show me how to correct the errors I have just outlined. Guide me and direct me, God. Please remove my arrogance and my fear. Show me how to make my relationships right, and grant me the humility and strength to do your will. And they say that is an outline from what is written on page 86, paragraph 1 in the big book. And you can always formulate your own prayer. I remember I used to just talk to God like God's my buddy, my pal. Like, hey, G, it's Lisa. Uh, like you didn't know. And always some chuckles and talking to God like God is my friend. And this will take us to the end of the meeting. So let me just go back. So we finished on page 92. And we finished at, let's say we finished at his success, then ours. So we'll pick up on page 92. Finally, we begin to see that all people, including ourselves, are to some extent emotionally ill. We did read that, but we'll read it again. It's a good place to start off the next time we get together. Thank you so much, all you crazy alcoholics, for being part of this recording, being part of this literature study. We'll see you again next week on the 28th. And let's close with the Serenity prayer. And you can all unmute. We can say it together. God, I want to do a little tribute and lift up our dear departed friend Lorraine, who was a part of our meeting and who has now gone to the big meeting in the sky. We know that she is safe in your hands. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Keep coming back.
Shot glass of recovery.